Hi, I'm Sushant and welcome to this online tutorial by Quest. Neurology is one of the most interesting parts of internal medicine. But to begin with, it can be challenging to understand correlations between various aspects of neuroanatomy, physiology, and clinical neurology. In this and the next few tutorials, let's focus on basics of neuroanatomy and its application in clinical medicine. For the sake of studying neuroanatomy, we can divide the neural apparatus into three interdependent systems: the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system. CNS includes brain and spinal cord. PNS includes spinal nerves and their branches, while the autonomic nervous system is made up of two systems, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. Neurons are the fundamental cells in all of these neural systems. Structures of these neurons can be further subdivided into the cell body and its processes. There are structural differences between axons and dendrites. For example, we know that axons are usually elongated, smooth structures, while dendrites are smaller branching processes somewhat like tree roots. Yet, the more important difference is dendrites bring impulses towards the cell body, while axons are functionally carrying impulses away from the cell body towards other cells. Now, collection of these cells is grossly seen as the gray matter, while collection of the axons is seen as white matter. It is important to remember that white matter is made up of processes that are carrying impulses from some part of the gray matter to another part of gray matter within these neural systems. We are all aware of the gray matter that is covering the surface of the brain. That is known as the cortex. But there is also collection of gray matter deep within substances of the brain and substances of the brain stem. These collections of gray matters within the CNS are known as nuclei. As we start moving downwards towards the spinal cord, the gray matter or the cell bodies, they start organizing in the central part of the spinal cord. They organize in a horseshoe-shaped manner. The white matter is organized in the surrounding areas. That means the white matter in the spinal cord is situated superficially. Now, the central part of the spinal cord has a CSF-filled cavity known as the central canal. If we draw an imaginary sagittal line through this canal, we can divide the spinal cord into the right and the left halves. The white matter in each of this half is further divided by the horseshoe-shaped gray matter into three columns. So we have the anterior, lateral, and posterior columns of the white matter. Can there be cell bodies outside CNS? Of course, yes. Collections of cell bodies or gray matters in the peripheral nervous system are known as ganglia. One such very important ganglion is situated on the posterior root which is attached to the spinal cord. And this ganglion is known as dorsal root ganglion or the posterior root ganglion. One very interesting thing about cells situated in the dorsal root ganglia is that their processes are responsible for collecting sensory stimuli from the peripheral receptors. But the other processes are also responsible for sending these very impulses upwards towards various parts of the brain. That means the processes of cells in the dorsal root ganglia need to be very long processes on both the sides. We know that dendrites by definition are short processes. So how is it that the dorsal root ganglion is managing to have such long processes on both sides? Well, the arrangement of dorsal root ganglion cells is such that they have only one process that comes out. And this single process further divides into two parts. One part which brings the impulse towards the cell body and another part which sends the impulse away from the cell body. Such a typical neuron is known as a unipolar neuron or a pseudo-bipolar neuron. Now, a group of axons usually travel together and carry impulses from one cell body to another cell body. Such group of axons outside the CNS are known as peripheral nerves. Nerves that arise from the spinal cord are called spinal nerves and they carry neural impulses for the entire body. And those nerves which arise from the brainstem, they are called cranial nerves. They would carry impulses for the head and neck and they would also carry some special impulses. Apart from the nerves, white matter needs to carry impulses from the periphery towards the brain. Now these are sensory impulses or afferent impulses. Similarly, our brain would like to send impulses towards various peripheral organs like the muscles. These would be known as the efferent impulses or the motor impulses. Our neural apparatus is our way of communicating with our surroundings and also of responding to our surroundings. So all the variety of stimuli that we interact with like pressure, touch, smell or light, that needs to be converted into a form of electrical impulse for our nerves to transmit them. This job is done by specialized structures known as receptors. Receptors therefore convert one form of energy, like the mechanical energy, into electrical impulses that can be transmitted towards the CNS via the sensory nerves. For the sensory nerves, the cell body of these axons is sitting in the dorsal root ganglion. But remember, the processes from the dorsal root ganglion also need to climb up from the dorsal root ganglion towards various parts of the brain. Collection of white matter within the CNS that is going to do this job. The job of transferring impulses from a common source towards a common target and going via a common course is known as tracks. Now, tracks that would carry sensory impulses upwards are known as ascending tracks or afferent tracks. Similarly, tracks that would carry impulses from various parts of the brain towards the periphery, this would be known as descending tracks or efferent tracks. In the next few tutorials, we are going to understand further details of these neural structures. To summarize, neurons are made up of cell bodies and cell processes. Collection of cell bodies is known as the grey matter. This would be seen at cortex, at the nuclei, and at ganglia. White matters make up the nerves, and those nerves that arise from the spinal cord are known as spinal nerves. Those which arise from the brainstem are called the cranial nerves. Tracks are a group of axons in the CNS that arise from a common source and move towards a common target. We could have sensory tracks, which are the ascending tracks or the afferent tracks, and we have motor tracks, which are descending or the efferent tracks. If you have any questions on these topics, feel free to discuss with me on the Quest tab. Thank you and Jai Hind.